Welcome to today's Explainer. Have you ever poured your absolute heart into a project, totally knocked it out of the park, and instead of a promotion, your boss just seemed, well, annoyed? Today, we are meticulously breaking down the very first rule from a notoriously ruthless text on human dynamics to understand exactly why that happens. We're going to explore the hidden mechanics of influence step by step. Let's get right into it.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the prerequisites of power, move into Law 1, the judgment, examine a transgression called the doomed minister, look at an observance known as the stargazer's strategy, uncover the keys to power, and finally, we'll cover the reversal falling stars.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the prerequisites of power, understanding the aristocratic court. Before we can even begin to understand the first law, we absolutely must grasp the author's preconceptual idea about how the world actually operates. This explainer is derived entirely from The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. Now, the core thesis here posits that navigating the modern world is exactly like surviving in a scheming, old aristocratic court. Throughout history, courts formed around the person in power, right? A king, a queen, or maybe today, a CEO. The courtiers in these inner circles faced a pretty perilous dilemma. They had to serve the master and constantly compete for favor, but if they were too obvious about their power grabs, their peers would literally destroy them.
Because you simply cannot be direct with your ambitions, you have to use the velvet glove of indirection to survive. The absolute foundation of this preconceptual idea, the knowledge required to even play this game, is mastering your emotions. An emotional response is viewed as the single greatest barrier to power. Anger and affection, they cloud your objective reason. You simply cannot see a situation clearly if you are blinded by your feelings. To succeed, you must act indirectly, planning several steps ahead with perfect, calculating patience.
I think this quote from the Renaissance diplomat Niccolo Machiavelli perfectly sets the mood for our analysis. He noted that any man who tries to be good all the time is bound to come to ruin among the great number who are not good. That is the exact mindset here. We are examining the mechanics of power impartially. We're looking at how human dynamics actually operate in reality rather than how we wish they would operate. It is, at its core, a totally amoral game of strategy. Let's transition to Section 2, Law 1, the judgment, and start breaking down the core concept.
Okay, so the primary directive is this: always make those above you feel comfortably superior. Your desire to impress your superiors must never cross the line into making them feel insecure or threatened by your talents. Let's do a word-by-word explanation to keep this super clear. Always means exactly that. There are virtually no exceptions to this daily practice. Comfortably superior is the exact psychological state you must manufacture. Think about it. If your boss feels uncomfortably superior, it means they know they hold the title, but they secretly fear you're actually smarter or more competent than them. You must ensure they feel completely, absolutely secure in their own brilliance. Which brings us to the title of the law itself: never outshine the master. Let's explain this technical term simply. In this context, outshining doesn't mean you are actively, maliciously plotting to steal their job. Not at all. It just means allowing your natural gifts to inadvertently poke holes in a superior's vanity and their sense of preeminence. It means your mere presence makes them feel less attractive, less intelligent, or less capable by comparison. Now, when you fail to observe this dynamic, you commit a transgression. A transgression in the realm of power is not a moral failing. It's a fatal strategic error that decreases your power and, honestly, often leads to outright ruin. And we are about to see this demonstrated in a truly disastrous historical case study.
That takes us perfectly into Section 3, Transgression, the story of the doomed minister.
Picture this. It's 1661. Nicolas Fouquet, King Louis XIV's finance minister, desperately wants to be named prime minister. So, what does he do? He throws the most spectacular party the world has ever seen to ingratiate himself with the young king. He brings the absolute greatest minds of Europe to his newly finished chateau. They eat lavish 7-course meals featuring exotic foods from the Orient. They tour magnificent geometric gardens. They watch elaborate fireworks over the canals. And they even enjoy a custom play by the famous Molière. Fouquet genuinely thought this overwhelming display of wealth, taste, and connections would prove once and for all that he was utterly indispensable.
But here is the crazy part. Instead of securing his position as prime minister, Fouquet's brilliant display deeply, deeply offended the arrogant Sun King's vanity. Every appreciative smile the guests gave Fouquet made Louis XIV feel like his own finance minister was more charming and powerful than the king himself. Now, Louis XIV wouldn't admit his own insecurity, of course. Instead, he fabricated an excuse.
He accused Fouquet of stealing from the treasury and dealt him a shocking consequence. For throwing the greatest party in history, Fouquet was arrested the very next day and spent the last 20 years of his life locked in solitary confinement.
So why did Fouquet fail where his successor, Jean-Baptiste Colbert, succeeded so brilliantly? Well, Colbert threw the dullest parties in Paris. He was famously uncharismatic and incredibly careful with money. But Colbert understood the law perfectly. He made sure all the money liberated from the treasury went directly to Louis XIV, so the king could build the Palace of Versailles, ironically using Fouquet's exact same architects and designers. Colbert made the king feel comfortably superior, and by doing so, he kept his power and his freedom.
All right, let's flip the script. Section 4, Observance, the Stargazer Strategy.
Conversely, when you perfectly execute this law to attain the heights of power without threatening the master, you commit an observance. Let's look at how one incredibly famous figure perfectly executed an observance by navigating the really treacherous waters of court patronage. Historically, Renaissance scientists would just give their patrons cool mechanical gadgets like compasses, but this actually made the patrons feel like mere ignoble financiers. So, in 1610, the great astronomer Galileo completely changed his strategy. When he discovered the moons of Jupiter, he didn't just publish his empirical truth and divide the credit among various patrons. Nope, he strategically aligned his brand new discovery exclusively with the cosmic glory of the Medici family, whose dynastic symbol just happened to be Jupiter. He claimed the 4 moons literally represented Cosmo II and his 3 brothers. And because Galileo did not challenge the intellectual authority of his masters, but instead made them shine brilliantly among all the courts of Italy, he achieved the ultimate career victory. Cosimo II made Galileo his official court philosopher and mathematician, complete with a full, secure salary. The days of begging for inconsistent gifts were completely over. He gave them glory instead of insecurity. See, the normal explanation of science is all about empirical facts. But Galileo realized a critical truth about human dynamics. Masters do not care about empirical truth nearly as much as they care about their own name, their ego, and their legacy. He didn't try to prove he was smarter than the Medicis. He basically made the heavens themselves a reflection of the Medici's greatness. So, moving on to Section 5, the keys to power. Let's look at the tactical applications of Law 1. Having seen those historical extremes, how do we actually apply this in everyday dynamics? Well, the key is discreet flattery. Overt flattery is way too obvious and just makes you look like a sycophant. Instead, you want to purposefully mute your own exceptional qualities. Make harmless mistakes just so you can ask for your boss's help. Because, let's face it, masters adore dispensing their expertise. If you are naturally much funnier than your boss, tone down your humor so they don't look cold and surly by comparison. Ascribe your best, most creative ideas directly to them, acting as if you are merely echoing their own brilliance. I absolutely love how the 17th century philosopher Baltasar Gracian summarized this dynamic. He said, "Stars may be related to the sun, but they never appear in her company. Because there can only be one sun at a time in any hierarchy. If you are a star, you have to intentionally fade into the sky so the master star can shine the brightest. Remember, you aren't permanently diminishing yourself. You are simply maintaining control of the situation by not falling victim to their fragile insecurity." Finally, Section 6, the reversal, falling stars, knowing when to break the rule. You know, every rule in this text has an exception, which the author refers to as the reversal. The reversal dictates that you should only ever outshine a superior if they are already weak, losing power, and ready to fall from grace. If your master is a falling star, the law simply no longer applies. You can discreetly hasten their downfall or just sit back and let nature take its course. But if your master is firmly seated on the throne, you must be patient, bide your time, and play the game. As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to impartially apply these raw mechanics to your own life. Really think about the dynamics at your workplace or in your organizations. Who actually holds the power? What are their deepest insecurities? And how can you navigate them without ever inadvertently outshining the master? But most importantly, is your master firmly on the throne, or are they a falling star? Understanding this foundational law is the absolute first step to truly grasping the complex hidden mechanics of human power. Keep that question in mind today, and thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive.